No team want to see the Bills. How are we doing that about the teams on the playoffs? Because that's how good Josh Allen is. He got y'all saying, yo, did y'all forget? Y'all must have forgot. You know what I mean? Now he back rolling again.
Josh Allen's going to go on the road in Week 18 versus the Miami Dolphins with a chance to win the division.
They're in a zone right now, in a good zone, and the schedule favors them, right? You know, they got through the 2 games that you questioned. Can they beat Kansas City and Dallas back-to-back? Bang! Yes, we can. This is a united bunch of guys right now, legitimately, post Ken Dorsey, all on the same page.
And then you take that and now they rally around each other and rally around the coach. I think that's the biggest telltale sign of a team that's ready to make a push into the postseason and ready to put everything in front of them and put all their chips in.
Ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, I feel like it was just a few weeks ago that we were talking about this Buffalo Bills team not even making the playoffs and that they were not going to meet the expectations that everyone had for them coming into this year. But how quickly things can change, because now it looks like the Bills are one of, if not the very best team in the entire AFC. The offense, ever since firing Ken Dorsey and making Joe Brady the play caller, has looked to be a lot better, and the defense, man, even with all of the injuries that they've had so far throughout the year, is still kicking, and they just dominated a Cowboys offense that was averaging almost 40 points a game. But what's so crazy about all of this to me is that I think this Bills team has a few more games left in the season to get even better than they already are right now, and I also think that they're going to have a chance when they play the Dolphins in Week 18 to win the division and get themselves home field advantage in the playoffs. And if you're heading into the playoffs, I promise you don't want to see this Bills team, not only if they're coming to you, but especially if you have to go on the road and play them in Buffalo. But before we get all the way into this video, if you like Buffalo Bills content just like this, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Bills videos for the remainder of this season. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Buffalo Bills, this team came into the season with pretty high expectations considering they still had Diggs and Josh Allen, and they had a lot of guys that were injured last year that were going to be back for this season, but unluckily we saw a lot of those guys that were healthy for this season already go down with season-ending injuries, which left a lot of people thinking this Bills team was going to turn out to be nothing. It got really dark around when they lost to the Broncos, putting themselves at 5-5, and it pretty much left everyone thinking that they probably weren't going to make the playoffs, but man, how this season has turned around. They're 3-1 ever since that Broncos game, with their only loss coming from the Eagles in Philadelphia in a game where they really dominated for the majority of it, and they should have found a way to come out with the win. I mean, we really should be sitting here saying, how did the Bills beat 3 really good teams in back-to-back-to-back weeks? But they did end up losing that Eagles game, so you obviously can't count it. But even with that loss, I was still pretty high on what the Bills could do if they could find a way to get in the playoffs, and they've shown me why I was right about that over these past 2 weeks against the Chiefs and the Cowboys. The defense in both of those games came to play and only allowed 17 against the Chiefs and 10 against the Cowboys, which is a pretty good showing. There's not many teams in the NFL that can say they held the Chiefs or the Cowboys to that low of points, so the fact the Bills were able to do that in back-to-back weeks is a really promising statement, and it just shows me what this team can truly be when they're playing at their full potential. I mean, even with all of the injuries, they still have some solid pieces on this defense, like Leonard Floyd, who was a great addition this offseason, Greg Rousseau, who is currently playing out of his mind, Ed Oliver, who has made himself known as one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league right now, and AJ Espinesa, who didn't even play in the Cowboys game, but they still managed to dominate. So the defensive line can still get after the passer at an extremely high level, and they've done a pretty good job against the run in these past few weeks as well, on top of what their linebackers have been able to do. The Bills, of course, lost Matt Milano, who is one of the better linebackers in the entire league, but to be honest, we've seen some guys step up and really take his spot, and obviously not play as good as him, but play good enough football to make this defense well-rounded. You of course have Terrell Bernard, who is playing pretty solid. You have Dorian Williams, who I like a decent amount as well as a rookie, and then you have the guy that I really like in Tyrell Dodson, who is playing at a really high level right now. So you got a defense with a really good front seven, especially when everybody's healthy and on the field, that's going to give a lot of offenses a lot of trouble. And then in the secondary behind the front seven, you have Christian Benford, who stepped up and played pretty well. You have Taron Johnson, who has also stepped up and played at a really high level. And then of course you have the guy that you traded for in Rasul Douglas, who in my opinion has became the #1 corner on this team, and that trade looks really good in hindsight. A lot of people liked the trade decently at the trade deadline, but it looks even better than it did back then now with what he's brought to the team. And then, of course, you still have Jordan Poyer at the safety position, who we all know what type of player he is, which helps round out this defense and make him one of the better defenses in the NFL, even with all of the injuries, which is crazy to hear coming out of my mouth because imagine if they would have been able to stay all healthy. But man, when you think about the Bills, you don't think about their defense, even with how good it's been. You think about this offense and Josh Allen, and rightfully so, because this offense, when they're clicking, is easily a top 3 offense in the league. Josh Allen, of course, over these past 4 games, has been on an absolute tear, putting up some ridiculous numbers and looking good while doing it, and that's with teams trying to take away and double team Stefon Diggs, which just shows what type of player Josh Allen really is. We've seen Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid be big-time targets for Josh Allen, and it looks like the Bills with Joe Brady have started to get into those 2 tight end sets a lot more, and it looks like Josh Allen is comfortable being in those sets. And then, of course, you have that guy Gabe Davis, who's a pretty solid receiver too, with all being considered, and you have Khalil Shakir, who gives you a deep threat that's really fast, and he's a guy that in his second year has kind of broken out and became exactly what the Bills needed at the receiver 3 position. So the passing attack, like everyone would expect with the guys they have, is really, really dominant. But what's really came along this year, and especially in this past game against the Cowboys, is this rushing attack with James Cook. Last year, everyone could see James Cook's potential and how much talent he had as a prospect, but the Bills really didn't give him an opportunity to take the workload and be the #1 back. But this year, man, they've gave him that opportunity, and he has taken full advantage of it. He's so good at being patient behind the line of scrimmage, and at the same time, when he gets through a hole, he's so good at breaking tackles and making people miss. He looks like his brother that was pretty good on the Vikings at one time as well. And what's great about this is that Joe Brady is leaning into this and letting James Cook cook, which takes a little bit off of Josh Allen's plate. And when you can take a little bit off of Josh Allen's plate, who's a guy that doesn't need anything taken off his plate, you're going to see a really, really good offense. But James Cook isn't just helping out Josh Allen in the run game. He's also being one of the better receiving threats on the entire Bills team, and he's shown that he can not only be a great runner of the football when he's running the ball, but that he can also be almost like a receiver out of the backfield. We've seen for multiple weeks in a row now that Joe Brady tries to do whatever he can to get him mixed in the receiving game, and that's paid off in big, big ways. He's a pretty solid route runner, and at the same time, he's pretty good at the catch point, and we're starting to see him develop into one of the best overall, well-rounded running backs in the entire NFL. So with all things considered, man, you can tell by the way I'm talking about this team how much potential they have going into the playoffs and going into these last 3 games. And if I'm just going to be completely honest, I really do think they could be a Cinderella story and they could win the Super Bowl. But that's just my opinion, so I'm still curious to know what you guys think in the comments below. So let me know how you're feeling down there. And with that being said, I'll catch all of you guys in the next video.